Hello everyone, I'm Christina at CSLdesigns and today I'm going to show you how to make these Rosebud wirework earrings, and this is what my pair looks like. So you can see we have rosebuds all the way around and then with beads in the middle to add a bit of a pop of colour, and then they hang and dangle nicely from the ear like this. So I've made the rosebuds just on one side, so when you wear them they'll be facing away from you, and obviously you can make them whatever size you want to, so you can make them larger than this or even smaller. So originally I came up with the idea for this technique when I made this bracelet. So you can see the exact same principle. We have the rosebuds with the beads in the middle going all the way around, and then here just attach my clasp. So this is obviously on a larger scale to make it the bracelet, whereas the earrings I turned it down a little bit regarding the materials. So I used finer gauge wire and then also smaller beads just to make it a little bit more delicate looking. Now obviously you could also make this as a bracelet if you prefer that look for that. That's completely up to you. But in this tutorial here I'm going to show you how to make the earrings to match. So if you want to make a set you can easily do that. But if you want to learn how to make the earrings, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. Now I have two different gauges of regular round silver coated wire. The first one here is a 1mm. So this is going to be the base wire and the thicker and stronger gauge. And then I have a 0.6mm here, and this is a wire that I'm going to be twisting, so we're going to use that twisted wire to make the rosebuds with. And then we're going to need some 4mm rounds here, so the specific ones that I'm using are purple coated hematite gemstone beads. Obviously you can choose whatever you want to. So then as for the lengths of wire that we need to get ready, I have here first of all a length of the 1mm, and this is 30 centimeters. So like I said, this is going to be the base wire and the strength of the piece. And then we need a length of our twisted wire. So what I have here is about 1 meter and 10 centimeters. Now how I achieved this is by cutting off a length of the 0.6mm of about 3 meters that I then folded over in half and twisted together. And then we achieve this length of twisted wire. So both this and the base wire is to make one earring. So I then take my base wire here and my twisted length of wire, and we need to then attach them together to get started. So I'm working towards one end of my base wire, but just make sure to leave a bit of a tail, so we can use that to connect and also finish off with. And then for the twisted wire, we also just need to leave a bit of a tail of a few centimeters. Then all you're going to do is put the twisted wire behind the base wire, and then wrap the twisted wire around the base wire, like that. So now basically it's attached, but obviously you can still slide it up and down. It's going to stay in one place once we get a few rosebuds done. But I'm just going to wrap it around a couple of times. That's twice, and I'm just going to do another one as well, before we then go straight into making the very first rosebud. So something like that. Now they're attached together. And then we need to get our beads out. So I'll grab my very first bead here, and then we need to put that onto the base wire from the open end, and then put it all the way down right to after those wraps with the twisted wire. And what I just want to mention is, obviously this bead fits onto this base wire, the 1mm, but if you struggle getting your bead onto this wire here, what you could always do, if you have smaller holes in your beads with the ones you want to use, you can always take this down to a 0.8mm. Just be aware that obviously it's not quite as strong, but it'll still work. And then to kind of start making the first rosebud, I'm going to make sure the bead is pushed all the way down, and then I put my finger behind it and then another finger on top of it, the thumb, and then I start taking the long end here of the twisted wire around the side, and I start to kind of spin my piece around. So I like to do that instead of bringing the long length here all the way around every time. I just find that easier. Again, I keep holding my fingers under and over it, because then that makes sure that the wire that we're bringing around, the twisted wire here, goes on the side of the bead, so not crossing over, because that's what we want, because obviously we want that bead there to sit right in the middle. Just keep going around. Now that's one full circle. Then we need to keep going, and now we need this next round to be on the outside of the first circle. So again, just put your finger on it and that will help that, because then the wire will naturally kind of just follow the shape of the other circle. Again, make a full one back to the original side until you have your first little rosebud there. Need to bring it in a little bit. So it looks like that. So now we have 2 full circles, and now what we need to do is get this wire ready for the next one and also secure each one in place. So I'm going to just gently bring it under the side here of the rose, and then over the top of the base wire, down into the side, because then what we need to do again is wrap around the base wire with the twisted wire. So that was once, and then twice. You can see how on the back we get wraps starting underneath the rosebud a little bit. We then need to get to the point where we need to start the next rosebud. So you can wrap this about 2 to 3 times. It really depends on the spacing that you want between your rosebuds. So now that that's wrapped, we need to add the next bead. So again, I grab that and then put it onto the open end of my wire, and then it slides all the way down, and then we're just in the same position as when we started the first one. So the wire there is coming from underneath and out to the side here. Then put your finger on the bead, make sure it's pushed down, and then start bringing the wire around the side, going over the base wire, and then just follow the shape of the bead, going round and round. Continue to hold your fingers on the bead there, a full circle, and you can see we're going to have just enough space to do another one. So the rosebuds here sit pretty much right next to each other. So just follow the first circle until you've done full 2 rounds, so they look like that. And then we need to just finish this one off and get in position for the next one. So I just need to bring the twisted wire over the base wire and then down underneath the rosebud right there on the top, and then start wrapping the twisted wire around the base wire a few times until we're in position to add the next bead. And that's really all you're going to keep doing. So keep doing this for the length that you need, and obviously how many rosebuds you add really determines how large your earring is going to be. So it's really up to you whether you want a larger one or a smaller one. So I've then added all the rosebuds that I want. So what I've ended up with is 16 in total, so I've used 16 beads, and on the end here I've just wrapped around the base wire a couple of times after that final one, just like we do in between, and also just like we did right there in the beginning. So this is also where you want to decide how large you want your earring to be, because if you want it smaller than this, you just use less beads and therefore less rosebuds. Or if you want it even bigger, then obviously you'll just need to add more, but you'll probably need to use longer lengths of wire then. So what we need to do now is finish off the ends here, the twisted wire. So first of all, we just need to cut both lengths to about the same. It's about 2 to 3 centimeters I cut, so I'm just going to cut the longer length here down to that to be the same as the other one. But then we need to finish it off as well. So I'm just going to take a pair of chain nose pliers here, because then what we need to do is make a little rosebud with this end just to sit on top of these wraps on the end and kind of make it blend in nicely, obviously just without adding in a bead. So I'm going to go right to the end of the twisted wires. Now, because they're twisted and obviously the end here is cut open, what you might find is when you grab onto the end and start kind of bringing this around, that the twist will undo a bit. You can see it's happened there. So first I'm just going to bring them in a bit, because obviously you're kind of pushing the twist open. But bring it in, but then I'm just going to go in and cut off that little end that's kind of opened up, just so we don't have too much wire kind of going out to their own sides. And then go back and continue, and you can just kind of go a little bit down the wire now. And then, just so you kind of get a full circle, this is going to be the middle of the rose, and you just want to then keep going around with this until it gets closer and closer into the wraps. So what we're going to end up doing is this little rosebud, or rose, is going to end up sitting right on top of them, and the very ends of the wires are hidden right in the center of it. So that's then what it looks like. So it kind of blends in nicely as well, because obviously it goes with the rest. So you just want to finish off the other end in the same way. So now finish off both ends in the same way. Then we need to shape it into the loop that we want, so the circle. So if you find that it already has a bit of a natural curve, then just use that and continue it. So basically what we need to do is keeping the roses flat on the side, and then we just need to bring the two ends together. We'll get a nice circle shape. that you can see. Bring them together and it's going to be a little something like this, and just keep adjusting the shape until you're happy with the circle, something like that. And then we need to obviously attach them together there at the top. So again, I'm just going to take some chain nose pliers on this side here. This happens to be a longer piece, so I'm just going to bend this one straight up away from the piece, something like that. And then the other one's going to come over there from that side. We're going to use the shorter tail here to fasten with around this wire that we just bent up. Let's get it in the right position. And then I'm just going to push this a little bit forward because it's coming in front of that wire. And then all I'm going to do is hold this in place and then bend this short end around the long one that we have sticking straight up, and making sure that the two roses on the end without beads end up sitting right next to each other. So you just bring it around, and then you want to wrap it around a couple of times. Make sure your wraps are nice and tight and push them down. And you can just twist the piece. It makes it a little bit easier. But don't worry too much about if the shape goes a little bit out of shape here, because we can always readjust that once we made it. But it's just important we have the main circle in place. Let's make sure that it doesn't overlap there. So you wrapped around a few times. And then I take my flush cutter so I can cut off the excess of the wire. Go right in there where the last wrap is and cut the excess off. And then because I have a little end there where I cut it off, just make sure to always squeeze that in whenever you cut off some wire, just to have less of a chance of sticking out somewhere and catching or scratching on something. So obviously we want it to be nice and comfortable to wear. So like that. Then what we have left, just going to squeeze it in a bit more there, is obviously this wire sticking straight up, and this one we're going to use to make a wrapped loop with. So it's coming straight up already. So all I'm going to do is go up a little bit above the final wrap that I just did there. Put my pliers on there. So I have just a little bit of gap between the wrap and my pliers. And then put a bend in. Then I'm going to take my 6-step bell making pliers, just because I like to make sure I use the same size loop. But you can easily use round nose pliers. Make a circle with them, bringing the tail around the pliers all the way till you get a complete circle like that. And then I take my chain nose again and I put them onto that circle and grab on tightly so it's not going to move. Then I'm just going to take this tail and then wrap around this bare piece of wire that's underneath, and basically just fill in the gap with these wraps, just to make it nice and secure as well. So something a bit like that. And then again, just need to make sure that it's wrapped tightly all the way. So you can always kind of help squeeze them in a bit more with pliers if you need to. It is a 1mm wire, so it is a bit thicker to work with. But then just cut off the excess. And again, make sure to squeeze in that little end, so nothing is going to catch or scratch. And there we go. And then if you need to, you can always just readjust the shape here, but it still looks like it's actually kept the shape quite nicely. And then all you do is you use the loop up here to attach to your earring findings, obviously using a jump ring, and then do the second one as well in the same way, and then you'll have your complete pair. So I now made my second earring as well, so I have my final pair, and then that's what they look like. So obviously we have a rosebud going all the way around, and then with those beads with that pop of colour in the middle, just adds a bit of interest. And obviously you can choose whichever kind and colour of beads that you want to. So the way I made them is that when they hang from the ear, the rosebuds there are facing out to the side and away from your face and your head. So obviously you just want to make sure you attach your earring findings properly, and then also when you put them on, they're kind of facing away from you, because then this will be the back and that looks like this. So that's how you make these earrings. So do check out other tutorials of mine on my channel, and I also have an Etsy shop and a website, so please feel free to have a look. All links and everything will be in the description box below. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching.